What up, though? This is Thomas, and this week I am reviewing Charlie Wilson's War. It's a 2010 movie, and it is starring a lot of people. You could also call it Who Isn't in this movie? Starring Tom Hanks, Julia Roberts, Amy Adams, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Emily Blunt has a cameo, and the Don Draper's boss, he has a cameo. And so this movie is different from typical Tom Hanks movies. If Julia Roberts is America's sweetheart, Tom Hanks is like the male equivalent to that, and they're both in this movie. um, so Tom Hanks plays this womanizer, philanderer who has a penchant for alcohol, mainly whiskey, and he plays Charlie Wilson, who is a congressman of a small district who doesn't really need much. He says in the movie that all they care about is their guns and Jesus, and he's able to deliver both of them. And so that's the type of man he is. Uh, Philip Seymour Hoffman's character Gus, as Charlie Wilson's character calls him, he said that he has he holds more IOUs than anyone in the house. And we actually start the movie with them in a bathhouse uh, with two strippers and a woman who's on the cover of Playboy, and they're all naked with Tom Hanks' character. It's sort of a shocking uh, opener, but it does show who this character is. This is also based on a true story, which makes it even more crazy. So, Philip Seymour Hoffman's character has sort of been annexed away from where the action is, but ends up linking with Tom Hanks' character. And together, they raise up this money for a covert war that's happening in Afghanistan. The There was a scene in the movie that I really liked where Philip Seymour Hoffman's character and Tom Hanks's character are basically helping each other out for the first time and getting to know how each of them ticks. And it's really cool because they're two very different people, but they're able to work together, like their synergy, even though they are different and are opposites in a lot of ways, they have a way of talking to each other in a rhythm. And throughout this movie, I really liked the writing, and it actually reminded me of HBO's The Newsroom. And then it turns out there's a reason why it's written by Aaron Sorkin. And so the same person who wrote A Few Good Men and The Newsroom and probably his most famous work, The West Wing. But the writing was phenomenal. There's a scene in the movie after post coitus. Julia Roberts plays a Southern um, Texan who comes from money and has a lot of it and isn't afraid to show it. Uh, she and Tom Hanks' character have a understanding, I'll say, but in it, she is very passionate about what is happening in the world, and she has this monologue, and it says like, "This isn't like this because if it was, meaning the war, you would have did this, you would have did that, you would have did this, you would have did that," and like if this was a real war, that will be the title of the monologue. If this was a real world, and both Julia Roberts and Aaron Sorkin, I feel like, deserve an award for that monologue. And throughout the movie, there are these moments where everybody gets to shine. Philip Seymour Hoffman has one with the first time we actually get to see his character in action, and he's talking to his superior, but he's fed up. And just the, I keep saying it, but the beauty of the writing, like, it's phenomenal the way Aaron Sorkin writes these characters. And it's like, even if you may not understand the geopolitical uh, surroundings of what's actually happening, you understand through the writing that this is a big deal and that we should, as the audience, care about it. And we do. That is something that I definitely did do. Like, I may not know the names and players of the game, but they made me care and made me want to see the protagonists succeed in what they had. And so I I understand that this is like an anti-communist, pro-freedom movie, and as a Aaron Sorkin, he very much is that himself. So that's not surprising. But even as a raging leftist, I enjoyed this movie. This movie was really good. I really enjoyed that they use archive footage for the throughout the movie, so you get to see it, like, brings you into the moment. Um, Especially in the third act, where we see the fruits of their labor of raising this money for this covert war and getting the ammunition and weaponry to defeat the Russians, to stop the communists, as they would say. Um, the archive footage shows what actually happened and how, I would think, accurate they are to the story. And I don't know, I just really, really enjoyed this movie. Like, it talked about the Cold War, it talked about the Russians, it talked about how there was an actual understanding between the Israelis, the Saudi Arabians, and the United States. And that was insane for the time. The last thing I'll say about this is watch the movie. And there was a moment, Philip Seymour Hoffman's character talks about this wise man and this little boy. And it's the "we'll see" monologue. Like I said, there are different beautiful monologues. The "we'll see" monologue, it it set the stage for what happened after the Pakistanis gained freedom from the Soviets. It was like with the Marvel movies, they have the uh, after credit scene. It felt like a after credit scene, setting the stage for what we end up knowing what happens. The same people that they trained ends up being the people that the United States fought not even a generation later. And the movie itself ends with this quote from the real Charlie Wilson. These things happen. They were glorious and they changed the world. Then we effed up the end game. We see that trying to rebuild after the destruction and after the war isn't taken seriously by the current administration after the victory. And when you have no resources and you feel abandoned, it's easy to get swept up in the um, radicalism of the extremists, which is what happened, and ended up having to deal with that with another war, a bigger war, a longer war, that took 20 years, I'd say, and all because the aftercare didn't happen. So that's what I think about this movie. It is phenomenal. I would definitely recommend it. You can check it out. It's free on YouTube right now. Just search Charlie Wilson's War. All right, holla.